Hello, I'm back from the block, and today we got some breaking news for Lorcana, a new format. It's called Coconut, it's in beta. I'm sure the name will change. Ravensburger wants feedback, and my first bit of feedback is the name is extremely dumb sounding and really undersells how powerful some of these coconuts, as they're called, really are. The elephant in the room, besides Dumbo, is Commander, a rule set for Magic the Gathering that is without a doubt the most popular way to play. The main changes the format makes are a larger deck, generally 4-player games, making the game longer by doubling health, and simultaneously making the game more consistent by giving everyone a card they always have access to no matter what, and making the game less consistent by making it so every card you only get one copy of, theoretically making it so you play very different cards every game. There's also a deck building restriction in Commander, although I won't really go over it since it can vary much from being non-existent to keeping you from playing like 90% of the cards ever printed. Now, you might not care about Magic or Commander, but at the end of the day, running card games is a business, and Commander's success does make every card game wish they had something similar to it. So I hope Coconut, despite any issues I have with it, does well to help keep Lorcana alive and attract new or returning players. I've also talked to people at Set Champs who got top 8 that wanted a Commander-like mode and talked to me about ideas they had for such a mode. So even among competitive players that can do well, it's something that has been wanted by me and others. So I've played Commander and Lorcana. Let's compare modes and see how Coconut holds up. First, here's the official rules. Coconut format is a thematic multiplayer format for playing the Disney Lorcana trading card game. You play in a group with each deck built around a favorite character. First, use the app to choose a Coconut card. Each one has special abilities to use as an inspiration for your deck and is associated with a specific Disney Lorcana card. Then, choose up to 3 ink types for your deck. One of them must be the same as your Coconut card's ink type. Next, build a deck around your Coconut card with at least 60 cards. Your deck can have up to 4 copies of the Disney Lorcana card associated with your Coconut card. You can't have more than 1 copy of any other card though. And then, for example, say you choose the Sapphire Coconut Moana card. Your deck must include Sapphire cards and can include up to 2 other ink types. It can have 4 copies of Moana Curious Explorer card, but no more than 1 copy of any other card. Format Coconut uses the multiplayer Disney Lorcana rules with one important exception. The first player to reach 25 lore or more wins. They recommend playing with 3 to 4 players for the best experience. Now, to go over the things I mentioned Commander does differently from regular Magic. First, Magic, like Lorcana, has a minimum deck size of 60 and a maximum of whatever a judge is willing to put up with. These rules still apply to Coconut, so no need to buy packs of 100 sleeves. You can retire a deck you're bored of and shove it in those same sleeves. And you'll likely not have to scrape the bottom of the barrel of your collection to get to the point your deck has enough cards to be legal. I don't hate Commander's approach of exactly 100 cards, but I think I kind of like the Coconut's way of doing it a bit more. First off, you can run 100 cards if you want. You can go above 60, and the cards that change rules like Christopher Robin and Tailwaggers are still allowed. So you can run a 100 card 50 puppy deck if you so choose. Also in Commander, you often run 40 lands and 60 normal cards anyway a lot of the time, so it's not that different either. More importantly than giving you the option to play that way though, is this allows normal Lorcana and Coconut Lorcana to be more forwards and backwards compatible. Since the deck building rules are the same if Lorcana ever decide to make a card that rewards you for playing a bigger deck. Then this can also be implemented into a Coconut deck with no special rules needing to be added or just being told, no, you can't run that card for its effect. For an actual example, we have Yorion, a card that was made for Magic as a reward for playing a deck bigger than usual, as going above the minimum size is usually a bad idea, as it makes it more difficult to draw your best cards. But Yorion is basically an 8th card in our hand if we built a bigger deck using his companion ability. In Commander, we can't ever use Yorion as a companion, as we have no ability to go above 100 cards in that format. If Yorion was written as if you have at least 80 cards in your starting deck, then we would run into the problem of everyone would just get to use it for free in Commander, which this situation already got a companion named Lutri banned. Another example from Commander is a card called Sarah Ascendant, a 1/1 that gets +5/+5 if you have 30 or more life. With 40 being the starting life, this can just be a random supercharged card to get turn 1 in Commander. But Coconut's rules being so similar to normal Lorcana, we should generally be fine with cards made for normal 1v1 games working fine in Coconut. And if they make cards exclusive for Coconut, they'll stay in that format anyway. I will say though, I joked about that purple Donald making all the lore counter accessories obsolete, and now these rules make him obsolete. That does of course bring up, like Commander, they made this game mode take longer as we need 25 lore instead of 20 to win. Not nearly as big of a jump of one opponent with 20 life to 3 opponents with 40 life, but I have played 4-player Lorcana games before that take like an hour and a half, and we were using our normal decks and 20 lore to win. Really, just with the fact you can challenge exerted characters, it's so much easier to slow down someone who's winning in Lorcana compared to Magic. That I think, if we needed 40 lore to win, it might feel a bit too much like a boring slog, and games would take too long. Our store is more casual and open to new things, so I'm sure I'll play some games of Coconut soon, and report back if the length actually feels right or not. But at first glance, despite it not looking like it causes long games, I bet this rule set will actually make some pretty long games. Now the big issue I do have with this format is, as I mentioned, Commander tries to be both consistent and inconsistent, with one card you always have access to, and everything else is unique one-ofs you have to draw. Coconut also makes everything unique except for the Coconut and cards you get to run extras of because of that Coconut's abilities. If you want to see what the Coconuts are, we find them in the official app by clicking Lore. Scroll over to the Coconut format. Here we can add players, give Coconuts to players, multiple people can run the same Coconut, and you can track lore here if you want. So here's what the Coconuts are if you haven't seen them before. They allow you to run 4 of the character the Coconut is based on, and have abilities. Some static, some activated, and in the case of Nick Wilde, allow you to break the one of each card rule even more. For an example of building a deck, and the card I want to talk about most to show my point, is Robin Hood Sneaky Sleuth. So the way we'd make a deck around him is make his Coconut our Coconut. The Coconuts are a side thing, not a card, just a Coconut as the Discord says. So despite it having the same name as Robin Hood, it doesn't count towards the 4 you are allowed to run, and if theoretically a card existed that gave you a lore for each Robin Hood you have, since this Coconut is a Robin Coconut and not a Robin card, it wouldn't count for that. See why I hate calling them Coconuts? It just sounds like a fake made up word I'm spamming. So from here on out, I will be calling these powers in the app emblems in the format Coconut. Anyway, now that we got our Robin Hood emblem, we can run up to 4 of him, but can run 0 if we really want to, but for this deck, we'd want the full 4. Then we can run 1 of each other card, and we can pick 2 colors besides green, and run those plus green, letting us play with half the cards in the game. The issue I have is Robin Hood is really strong in multiplayer. We can easily gain 10 or more lore off him, and the emblem we have makes it easier to gain that lore, but only once a game. So without having Robin Hood ready to quest, we never really want to use the emblem, meaning if the 4 copies are near the bottom of the deck, our deck can just feel awful having basically no emblem or strong cards. But on the other hand of the spectrum, if we draw 2 or 3 of this Robin early, it is so easy to just combo off since we got all this extra juice of being able to play the card multiple times in a row. So I think Magic's command zone of us having access to 1 strong card, but only the 1 copy over and over again, as we can replay our main card but it costs 2 more each time, is really good. I'd like, if we get any changes, it'll be something like this. We don't have to copy Magic 1 for 1, but I'd find it better to just have 1 card we can replay and easily get access to, over running 4 copies of it. Additionally, Commander has great PR. of you only need one of each card as everything is singleton. In reality, every Commander player will tell you it's not really true. We really start to like certain cards and we'll just buy multiple so we can run them in multiple decks, or get multiple art variants, or try to theme the art of the cards we run to our Commander in some way. And yes, in Commander we do have our own versions of tail waggers. But still, knowing we only need one copy of everything if we want to just play and brew decks is so nice, making getting that cool one-of card feel much more justified, and it's much easier to get people to try the game since you don't need 4 copies of all the greatest and most expensive cards. And you can save getting extra copies for when you're really into the game and making tons of decks. Like, could you imagine if Ravensburger decided one of the 18 emblems is going to be of the most expensive card in the game, from a set no one can get their hands on, and it'll only be the only card in the entire deck you need 4 of, in a format that very rarely needs 4 ofs. And that card is extremely strong and legal in all competitive formats, thus leading to the sustained high price. But I'm sure this could never actually happen. Back to the positives, I do genuinely like getting to use 3 ink types. As I snarkily mentioned, I don't really like Magic's deck building restrictions, as it depends on the commander, and we can limit nothing to limit everything, and anywhere in between. I don't think you can change this in Commander, to be clear, but I do hear phrases parroted in Commander videos and comments often. We need to return to blocks, and I don't mean New York City block. Or the ever-popular, restrictions breed creativity. Which is true, but I think the statement fits Coconut much more than Commander, as we are restricted in what we can do, although instead of our possible options being selected after we pick a Commander, in Coconut we get our emblem and the cards we get to run more of, then get to be creative with how we build up from there, by picking the 2 colors we want to combine with our Coconut without letting us just run every good card ever. There's one other thing I really think should change, although I'm sure Ravensburger planned on changing this anyway, so not sure how much I should really go in detail on this one, which is how the coconuts are physically handled. For now, we just have the coconuts in the app, and I think that's perfectly fine for now, while we test things so it's easy to just try over the beta period. But once the coconut cards are finalized and feedback is implemented, I think we need a physical card to represent them, and most importantly, they need to look different. Not only do these look just like the cards they allow you to run more of, they share the exact same name except for the minor detail of the second part of the name, Wily Fox, is in quotes on the coconut, but not the real card. This definitely led to a confusion for both me and others on the Discord, thinking maybe you have to run 1 coconut and 3 of the actual Nick Wilds, or maybe you can put 4 of the coconut into your deck, making it much harder to try this mode without printing proxies of the coconuts. But no, the coconut is a separate card shown at the beginning of the game to show what your deck's unique power is. Then you can run 4 copies of the card connected to it. I do think it's good to have the card art the coconut is assigned to on the coconut itself, so it's much easier to tell what card you're supposed to play with it. We do have 5 different Nicks after all, and it's much easier to quickly compare art than to compare titles. I made a quick mock-up of how I think we could design these coconuts to work better. Obviously the real one should look more professional. I like the idea of making them look like an ID card, so we get the art and all the abilities, but they can't be confused with the original card since you have to read them differently. Additionally, even though I said I don't like the coconut's name and want the game to use a true singleton rule, my mock-up is using the current expectations of the format so I can make my points one by one in this video without them randomly overlapping. Looking towards the text on my version of the coconut, I specifically put the coconut term in the card's name to help with the confusion that this coconut and the card you get to run 4 of are very different. I also then combined both of the rule changes into one, since even though I want singleton so it's more approachable, easier to collect for, probably involves a command zone like rule where you can show off your main card, especially if it's an enchanted version and so on. If we do keep this random cards are 4 ofs rule set, I think it's best we just keep all those rules in one section to read at once. Then finally we have the coconut's actual ability listed under that, which I see no issue with. I will say, one last thing before we close out. I made this mock-up before I started writing the script, and as I've been writing this, I realized one issue I never thought about, but is now very obvious to me, is we need better terminology for the character you get to run 4 of, as I've just not been sure what to call those characters, and I think it will be a much easier mode to talk about and get people into if, for example, instead of how I have to explain the mode now by saying, I'm running the Nick Wild Coconut, and it means I can run 4 Nick Wilds in my deck, and 4 Popsicles in my deck, then has an ability in-game to banish 4 of my items and gain 3 lore. If instead we change the terminology to something like, my lore master is Nick Wild, and his lore ability lets me run 4 Popsicles, and I can banish 4 items on my turn to gain 3 lore. I think terminology like that makes this mode way easier to talk about. That's my thoughts and feedback on Coconut format. TLDR, I am looking forward to playing it and hope it does well. I do like that we get to mix colors similar to the regular game rules, to really feel like we get to make decks our own and come up with our own restrictions, payoffs, and game plans. I like that the rule set changes are not a massive deviation from the main game, allowing more compatibility as cards are designed for normal 1v1 Lorcana. For negatives, I think the Coconut should have cards and some better terminology to make the mode less confusing and easier to introduce to people. Although I'm sure Ravensburger already plans on doing changes like this, and the Coconut cards could easily be put on the back of puzzle pieces and packs, or included in future pre-constructed Coconut decks. My biggest issue by far is I don't like how the format is both singleton, but also needs 4 of sometimes, and think it would be best if it's always singleton, and they change how your main character card works, so it'll be easier to use in a singleton format. Now, if you're excited to try the format out, where can you play? First, on Friday, if you're going to Gen Con, that's where Ravensburger plans to have their first playtest of the mode, and you can bring your own deck, or they have some as well for people to borrow. Ravensburger will also have playtests for the mode at Gamescom in Cologne from August 26th to the 30th. If, like me, you don't go to conventions much, you can get the Coconuts on the app or find them online and just start building a deck and see if your local community wants to try running the mode during or after League Play to mix things up. If your normal store doesn't want to, you can always check other card shops to see if they're down for it. You might even be able to find communities on places like Facebook or Discord to come together for some games. I will say though, as this is a beta and subject to change, I do not suggest buying cards for this mode right now, as things might drastically change over time. But if you already have the cards, or are fine also using the cards in other formats, then it's much more justifiable. I hope this mode does well, and I'm curious about your thoughts on the mode, so please share them below. Personally, the deck I want to try the most would be an Amethyst, Emerald, and Steel deck, using the various discard synergies printed over the years, with Scar as the Coconut. Once the format is out of beta, I'll make some real decks to play, and if you'd like to see those when the time comes, please subscribe, and you can support me on Ko-Fi if you wish. But no matter what, thank you for watching, and goodbye for now. Am I really doing this? I guess so. So he's finally back, performing for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you wanna clap as we take you through this coconut rap. R.H. Robin Hood, his coconut gun can fire in spurts. If he hits ya, it's gonna hurt. And then there's Mufasa. He's dead.